Imagine being able to write a code that's not only efficient but also reusable across multiple projects. Whether you are a student tackling assessment or a software engineer working on large applications, mastering the function and modules in the Python is key to become more effective coder. In this video, we'll break down everything you need to know with the practical example and tips that you can start using today itself. Stick around. By the end of this video, you will have the tools to write the clean and more organized code that saves your time and headaches. Let's dive in. So what exactly is function is? Think of it as a reusable block of code that performs a specific task. For example, as a student, you might write a function to calculate the grade based on the different subjects. As a software engineer, you might create the function to validate a user input on a web application. Function helps you to avoid writing a same code over and over again, make your program more efficient and easier to maintain. Python gives you tons of built-in functions like print, len, type, etc. But sometimes you need something more customized. That's where user-defined functions comes in. Whether you are automating a repetitive task in your code or solving a specific problem, creating your own function is essential. Let's get into nut and bolt of the defining a function. In Python, it's simple as you define a diff keyword, followed by the function name and a parenthesis. Let's start by the basic example. The functions we are looking at is called calculate_grade, and it takes an one parameter marks. This line defines our function. It's saying we are creating a function named calculate_grade that will work with a value we are calling marks. Now let's look into the body of the function. This is our first condition. It's saying that if the marks are 90 or above, the function will immediately return to the grade A. If the first condition isn't met, then we move to the next condition, saying that if the marks are 75 or above, it will return the grade B. Similarly, if this line checks if the marks are 60 or above, if so, it returns the grade C. And finally, if none of the above conditions are not met, then the function returns the F. This function uses the cascading if, elif, and else structure, which is perfect for grade calculation like this. It checks the condition in order for the highest to lower and returns the appropriate grades as soon as the condition is met. Let's look at some example here. We are passing the marks as 83 in the calculation, and we'll find out which grade it belongs to. So as per the 83 belongs to the grade B, which is greater than 75. So the code prints that you have got the B grade. And that's it. This function will take any numerical mark and returns the corresponding letter grade. It's simple but efficient way to convert numerical score into the letter grade. See how easy it is to wrap up with this logic with a function. Now, whenever need to calculate the grade, just call this function calculate_grade with the student marks. When naming your function, clarity is the key. Use the descriptive names that makes it obvious what the function does. For instance, for calculating the grade, calculate_grade is much more better than the calculate_g, right? Stick to lowercase underscore for the readability. Documenting your function is just as important. Adding a doc strings helps others as well as yourself to understand what the function does. Here's how you do it. Docstring is a special type of comments in the Python that describes what the function does, and it's placed right after the function definition. In this code, the docstring looks like this. The first line, calculate the grade based on the marks, provides the brief overview of what the function does. It's a conscious summary that helps anyone to read the code understand its purpose at a glance. Next, we have a args, which stands for arguments. This section explains the input that function expects. Here, we specify marks as an integer, representing the student's marks. And finally, we have the return string. We have a return which describes what function outputs. In this case, it tells us the function returns this string. This docstring is incredibly useful for anyone who might use or maintain this code in the future. It provides a clear documentation of the function purpose, its input and its output, making the code more readable and easier to understand. This makes your function easier to understand and maintain, especially when they're working on large project or in the times. Next, let's talk about function arguments. Positional arguments are the most basic type. You pass the value on the order that function expects. Here, the order of arguments matters. The function calculates the final score based on the weight of the assignments and the final score. Keyword arguments, on the other hand, allows you to specify which argument corresponds to which parameters. Make your function call more flexible. This makes your code easier to read, especially when you are having the function with multiple arguments. Sometimes, you will want to provide the default value for an argument. This is useful when the parameter usually have the same value, but you still want to flexibility to change it. This is handy for the scenario where the one parameter is often the same, but you might need to change it occasionally. What if you don't know the advance how many arguments you need to pass? That's where args and keyword args comes in. Args let you pass a variable that of a positional arguments. Make your function incredibly flexible. Keywords args allows you to pass in variable number of keywords arguments, perfect for configuration settings or optional parameters. A function doesn't allow just to do something, it often needs to return something also. For example, let's say you are calculating the square of a number. Here, the function computes the square and returns the result, which you can then use elsewhere in your code. Sometimes, you need to return more than one value from the function. Python makes this easier with the tuple unpacking. This is so useful in the situation where the function needs to perform multiple calculations. Understanding the scope of variable is crucial, especially in the large project. Variable defined inside the function are local variable or local to function, while variable defined outside the function are the global variables. Here, count inside the function is local and doesn't affect the global count. This distinction helps avoid the bugs, especially when working with large code base. But what if you need to modify global variable inside the function? That's where global keyword comes in. And if you are working with nested function, non-local allows you to modify the variables in the enclosed scope. These keywords are more powerful tools for managing the variable scope in the more complex program. Modules are Python files that contains code like functions or variables that you can reuse across different programs. For example, if you are writing a set of util functionality for the data analysis, you can save them in the module and import them into any project. This is a huge time saver, especially when you are working on multiple projects with similar requirements. Creating your own module is as simple as saving a .py file with your function or classes. Let's create a simple module for handling a student data. To use this module in another file, just import it as it is. Modules help you organize your code better and make it more readable and easier to maintain. If you don't need everything from the module, you can import specific functions. This makes your code clear and avoid the potential conflicts with other modules. By mastering the functions and modules, you are setting yourself up from successing in both your academics and professional coding projects. Whether you are optimizing a code for class assignments or developing a scalable software solutions, these concepts are fundamental. Practice regularly, experiment with different approach, and soon you will see the significant improvements in your coding efficiency and effectiveness. If you found this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more tips and tricks on Python programming. Let's keep learning and code together. Bye bye.